When you're stuck in the afterlife and your house gets taken over by insufferable yuppies, it's time to call in Beetlejuice, the ghost with the most, to whip those smug mortals into shape and make your afterlife home livable again. So, after doing a tour of this vast vegetation, we finally stop at this little house in this guy's house. The guy, Adam, picks up a spider from the little house and goes to throw it outside. Then his wife, Barbara, comes in to hand him a vacation gift. They hang out for a bit, but the phone interrupts them. Actually, it doesn't. They just keep doing what they're doing while it rings. This is what couples do when you call them. That's why they never pick up. Anyway, the realtor, Jane, just arrives, so Barbara goes to get the door and quickly dismisses her. They're trying to enjoy their 2-week vacation alone without any disturbance from anyone, not even Jane, who claims to have an irresistible offer on their house. Adam and Barbara now go out to the store, and on their way they talk about trying for a baby. Adam rushes into the store, grabs a couple of things, and heads back to the car. As they're heading back, they see a puppy on the bridge, which causes Barbara to swerve very quickly, and they fall into a river. They find their way home though and go straight to sit by the fireplace because they're both so wet. Barbara stretches her hand out and it catches fire. Not a big deal though, so they move on. Still in the house, Adam says he can't remember how they got up here, so he's going to go back to the bridge and retrace their steps. But the moment he runs down the stairs, everywhere changes to this really weird place. Just like 2 seconds later, Barbara comes from behind and pulls him into the house and says he had been gone for about 2 hours. I swear it's been nothing more than 5 seconds. What's going on here? She drags her husband in to show him some weird stuff in the house. One is the mirror and the other is a book titled Handbook for the Recently Deceased that somehow found its way into their house. They're scared now. I mean, who wouldn't be? Now this is the point where you run far away from the house. But then again, they just lost their car and outside is even a different planet altogether. What do? Adam decides to read the handbook to see what it's about, and he says it reads like stereo instructions. Nothing really revealing. Next thing we see is this random guy reading the newspaper. He gets to the obituary page and there's a picture of Adam and Barbara. Back to the couple, and Barbara is cleaning while Adam is playing with some little action figures in a cemetery in his model city. While they're doing their thing, Jane comes back to the house with a little girl. Adam and Barbara call out to her from the window, but she doesn't hear. She just turns around and walks away. Barbara then says that, according to the book, the living usually won't see the dead, so they figure out that they're dead. It would appear they got clapped in the accident at the bridge. But here's the thing, Jane just sold the house and the new owners are moving in now. A couple and their gothic daughter who's taking pictures everywhere. She sees a spider and automatically falls in love with this house. Typical. The man, Charles, is starting to feel at home when this guy, Otho, comes in through the window. He's here to redesign the house, but it seems like he can also see ghosts. They go to a closet and Barbara is just there hanging, but they don't see her. They move to a different room and Barbara and Adam are there trying to scare them, but the guys can't see them. Instead, it's Charles that jumps out and startles Delia and Otho. Charles says he came here just to relax and doesn't want all this stuff his wife is doing. But Delia says that while she has agreed to live with him in this crappy house, she won't stop expressing herself through her art. She screams at her husband and that works. It always works. Charles then says okay to remodeling, but asks her just to leave the library alone. Truce then. She and Otho leave. They want to go check out the attic. Adam hears them mention the attic and immediately runs like a headless chicken to go lock the attic door. He runs past Otho and Delia, and again Otho feels something. He seems to be the most sensitive of the lot. The fact that the door bangs shut right in their face must not have helped his suspicion. He walks up to the door and says he has a feeling that there's something very interesting behind the door, and Delia sarcastically says yes, ghosts of the people who died in this house and want them out of here. Oh, if only you knew, ma'am. Anyway, back to Charles, who's still trying to relax. He picks up a magazine to read and is not even fazed one bit by Barbara and Adam, who are in the room trying to frighten him, but really failing at it. Barbara in particular is mad that she's a ghost, but can't frighten people. Like, what's the point? And she's right. What's the point of being a ghost if you can't make people pee their pants? She then angrily runs out the door and finds herself in the same strange land Adam was in earlier. Adam follows her. Some weird creature chases them and they make their way back inside. Please forgive the CGI here. This movie was shot in the 80s. Anyway, back inside the house, the new owners, the Dietzes, are having dinner. And can someone tell me why Lydia is dressed like she's at the Queen's funeral? The family's trying to decide what stays and what leaves the house. And Delia says everything goes, including whatever's in the attic. Adam and Barbara don't like the sound of that. The next day, there are a bunch of workers at the house. Barbara and Adam consult the handbook to try and figure out what all this means for them. Then they see a paper fall to the floor. They pick it up and find out that it's the answers to their prayers. It's basically an ad for a bioexorcist named Beetlejuice. The ad says, unhappy with eternity? Having problem adjusting? Call Beetlejuice. Of course, you know they're going to call. But the thing is, there's no number on this paper. Anyway, back to Charles. This man is just trying to relax, but they won't let him. He enters the kitchen to make some tea and these construction workers outside break into the kitchen with Delia's sculpture. Seconds later, it's Delia herself that's trapped by the work of her hands. Just throw this thing away, missus. Lydia, however, is just taking pictures everywhere and she seems to spot Adam and Barbara through the attic window. Barbara's convinced she saw them, but Adam thinks that's not possible. But it seems Lydia really did see them, because she turns to Jane, who's just arriving, and asks her what happened to the people who used to live here. Jane's daughter tells her they drowned while Jane just hands over a key to Lydia. She says that's the skeleton key, and it'll open every door in the house. Which reminds me, I should recap that other movie called Skeleton Key. Anyway, she tells Lydia to give it to her father, but we already know that's not happening. Jane also tells her that she single-handedly decorated the entire house. Lydia's not interested in any of that. She just marches straight to the attic and tries to open the door with the skeleton key, but Adam and Barbara are pushing back so that she doesn't open it. While they're against the door, a Beetlejuice ad pops up on the TV. Again, he says, call now, but there's still no number. How are we going to call you without a number, sir? Anyway, they manage to get Lydia to stop disturbing them, but she doesn't leave. Adam then goes back to the handbook which says, in case of emergency, draw a door. So he picks up a chalk and draws a door on the wall. Next thing, knock 3 times. He does that and the door he drew begins to open up. There's a green glow coming from the other side of this door, and Lydia can see it from outside the attic. Barbara and Adam walk through the door and Lydia rushes to tell her dad what she just saw. Again, Charles is not pleased that the people in this house won't let him relax. He doesn't even want to hear what his daughter has to say. He just dismisses her and goes back to admiring the neighboring buildings through his binoculars. Adam and Barbara, by the way, are now in a different world with the weirdest of creatures. The absolute weirdest. They go over to the counter and tell the green lady they need some help. She tells them they'll soon use up their help vouchers at this rate. She says they have to have an appointment to see their caseworker, Juno, so they go and grab a seat. Meanwhile, the ever-resilient Lydia has finally broken into the attic, and she can see Adam's beautiful architectural work, but she's more fascinated by the handbook for the recently deceased. It's now Adam and Barbara's turn to be attended to, so they're led to another room where they see even more weird creatures, and then down a checkered room where they see the Lost Souls room, the room for ghosts that have been exorcised. They finally get to a place that's an exact replica of their house, and that's where they meet Juno. They tell her they need help with getting rid of the people in their house. She basically tells them they can actually do that themselves. All they need to do is read the manual. She gives them some words of advice, basically telling them to start simple. Then she says she has to go. Barbara's about to ask her about Beetlejuice, but Juno tells her not to even mention that name around here. She tells them they don't want his help. He doesn't work well with others, and she knows that because he was once her assistant. He was a troublemaker and started doing some freelance work as a bioexorcist, which only got him into more trouble. She says she thinks he has been hanging around their cemetery lately, and the only way he can be brought back is by calling his name 3 times. But she strongly suggests that they remove the details themselves without his help. Now we see a very annoying bug flying around and making annoying sound. Then it gets lured in by Beetlejuice. We quickly cut to Charles talking to a man, Max, over the phone. He's trying to get the man to buy some properties here. He says the people here don't know the value of the property, and so he can buy the whole town. Max doesn't seem so interested. While Charles was on the phone, he heard some sounds outside. So after dropping the phone, he went out to check what it was. It is actually Adam, but he thinks it's his daughter, trying to mess with him with sheets over her head. He shuts the door, and the ghost couple now go and try to scare Delia. They're making so much noise in her room that it's disturbing Lydia next door, so she comes out with a camera and takes pictures of the 2 people draped in sheets. At first, she thinks it's her parents trying out some new freaky stuff, but when she looks closely and realizes they don't have feet, she thinks twice about her conjecture. If she don't got feet, I'm not interested. Anyway, she realizes they could actually be ghosts, but how come she's still so calm? She asks them if they're the guys hiding out in the attic, and just walks up to them to take off their sheets. They resist at first, but they eventually take the sheets off, and asks how come she can see them and nobody else can. Lydia says she read through the handbook, and it said somewhere that people who are alive ignore the strange and unusual. She is strange and unusual. Her words, not mine, even though I agree. Barbara and Adam now take Lydia up to the attic, and they're explaining to her that they're trying to frighten her and her family so they'll move out. She just laughs and tells them that they'll never leave. Her father bought this place, and he never walks away from equity. She asks them why they can't leave instead. They said they can't. Like they literally cannot. Have you seen outside? Lydia now leaves, but she makes fun of them before she does. She tells them if they're real ghosts, they need to come up with new routines, because the sheets thing just isn't working. They, however, tell her to tell her parents there are ghosts in the house. And she does the following day, but Delia doesn't really believe, nor is she afraid in spite of the photos. Adam and Barbara see that play out, and they just give up. They have to get the Beetlejuice guy's help at this point. They head back upstairs, and Barbara now notices a light flickering in their little model city. Barbara thinks it's Beetlejuice, so she goes ahead to say his name 3 times, and boom, they find themselves in the model. They walk over to his tomb and dig him up. He comes out hovering and straight up greets Barbara. He's a really eccentric character. Think of the Joker, but you know, rising from the grave, Undertaker style. They tell him they just want to get some people out of their house, but he tells them that before he does that, he will have to get to know them first. And he's not referring to the Dietzes. He says he has to be real pals with Barbara and Adam, and even move in with them. They ask him if he can be scary, and he shows them that he can. But this guy's being a weirdo, so Adam wants him to leave. But Beetlejuice jumps on his back, and all of a sudden they're now wearing the same shirt. But that doesn't really faze them. They still want out. So Barbara says home 3 times, and they're back at home. She thinks they can scare the Dietzes off themselves. She takes her husband aside and whispers the plan to him. Now we see the Dietzes having dinner with some guests. Otho is in attendance, and he's talking about once being one of NYC's leading paranormal researchers. Lydia then blurts out that she saw ghosts, but her mom just laughs it off. Then out of nowhere, Delia starts this weird but honestly very interesting performance, and everybody else joins her one by one, but they seem to be doing the dance against their will. To end this beautiful performance, hands spring up from their plates, grab their faces, and throw them backwards. Adam and Barbara are now congratulating each other. Oh, it was their doing all along. How did they manage to pull that off? That was good stuff. They're now looking through the window expecting the guests to run out of the house scared, but what they get instead is a knock on the attic door. It's Lydia. She says her parents and their guests want them to come downstairs. Instead of scaring them, Adam and Barbara are totally thrilled and entertain them. And now, Charles and Delia are considering commercializing their friendly ghosts. Capitalism moment. But of course, Adam and Barbara won't come downstairs, so the guests think the Dietzes are a fraud, and they leave. Lydia now takes Charles, Delia, and Otho up to the attic. They get in, and Charles is fascinated by the model. Otho is fascinated by the handbook, which he steals, while Delia gets them all to leave. After they leave, Barbara and Adam, who are hanging from the window, now get back into the room. Outside the attic, Charles is really exploring the idea of turning this place into some profit-making venture. As they're all walking downstairs, this really weird snaky creature appears, and you can tell tell they're all proper scared this time around. Beetlejuice doesn't play, but when he starts approaching Lydia, Barbara intervenes. Beetlejuice is not happy that she did. He's throwing one heck of a temper tantrum now. After his tantrum, he goes off to cool in a sussy place in the land down under. You know, the place that burns for all eternity. No wonder the girls are so hot. Adam and Barbara are now summoned by Juno. She tells them that the place he went was her idea to get Beetlejuice out of the picture. She's obviously mad at them. They got Beetlejuice out and didn't put him back. They allowed themselves to be photographed and let Otho get hold of the handbook. Crazy thing is, they don't even know he stole it. Juno tells them to never trust the living. Very sage advice. She goes on to tell them that they cannot afford a routine haunting like this, to provide proof to the living that there is existence beyond death. Next, we see Charles and Delia relaxing outside the house and talking about how they don't think this is a very good environment for Lydia. They're shortly joined by Otho. We now see Lydia trying to write her self-deletion note. Back at Juno's office, she's asking the couple how they intend to scare off the Dietzes, and one after the other, Adam and Barbara show what they have under their sleeves. Not bad. Juno approves and tells them to go break a leg. As they start heading back to Earth, Lydia enters a room to look for them, but she only finds Beetlejuice in the model city. She starts having a conversation with him, and he asks her to help get him out of here. He tries to get her to say his name 3 times. He succeeds in getting her to say it twice, but she's not ready to give him that last one because she figures he is the snake from the other time. She says she wants to speak to Barbara. Barbara, by the way, is saying she can't go through with this because she likes Lydia. She suggests that they rebel. She now goes back in the attic and stops Lydia from saying Beetlejuice for the 3rd time. At first, Lydia is scared to her bones, but Barbara quickly changes back to her normal self to comfort her. Lydia narrates what just happened, and she says she wants to be Rip in peace too, so she can be with them. Kind of wholesome, I guess. Barbara tells her being dead is actually not cool. Who would have guessed it? And she wouldn't even have to die to be with them. Anyway, because they've decided to invite her family to stay. And speak of the devil, the family shows up in the attic and Barbara, Adam, and Lydia go to hide. Otho and Charles carry the model downstairs and are making a presentation in front of their guests. Lydia joins them not too long after and tells her dad and his guests that the ghosts that they want to see are no longer here. She tells them that the ghosts have agreed to let them live in peace if they don't ask them to do these stupid tricks. But do Charles and Delia listen? Of course not. They summon their paranormal expert, Otho. Over to you, Otho. The guest says he wants to see the ghosts, and Otho says he can make it work. He'll just be needing something personal of theirs. Delia goes to bring their wedding clothes, and Otho lies them on the table and starts his incantations. He ends his little poem with, "To the living, let now the dead come alive." And we see lightning flash outside. Barbara first appears in her wedding dress and quickly starts withering. Then Adam joins her and also starts withering away. Lydia tries to stop all this, but she can't. As a matter of fact, even Otho can't. Charles asks him to stop it, and he says it's too late. Lydia quickly goes to meet Beetlejuice to help, and he says he will on one condition. He wants out for good and wants to be married to her. She agrees. She would have agreed to anything to save her friends. She calls his name 3 times and boom, it's showtime. He comes out looking like the greatest showman, and at first, the guests are getting entertained by this. But their fun is very quickly cut short when Beetlejuice's arms turn to hammers and hit them to the ground. Hammer time. Beetlejuice quickly does his thing with Barbara and Adam, but what he's really focused on is getting married to this chick. What a weirdo. This alien-looking creature shows up and is acting as the priest and is about to join this little girl to Beetlejuice. But Adam gets up and tries to save the situation by saying Beetlejuice 3 times, but his teeth fall off and he can't even say it once. Beetlejuice now makes him disappear. Barbara then takes up the mantle. She says the name once, but Beetlejuice immediately throws a zip over her mouth. She unzip it and says the name twice, so he throws a metal lock over her mouth now. The joining is about to happen now. Beetlejuice is only looking for the ring. After some time, he finds it. Meanwhile, Barbara has disappeared, and Adam just got in a car and zoomed off. But just before the alien priest announces them man and wife, Adam rams into Beetlejuice's leg, and Barbara appears on the roof on top of a scary-looking creature, which just swallows Beetlejuice. The day is saved. We now cut to Lydia coming back from school, and she goes straight to see Adam and Barbara. She updates them on what happened at school, and even shows them pictures of the new town hall. Anyway, she got an A in her math test, so that means she's entitled to a little performance per a pre-existing agreement. Adam and Barbara get to the performance, and Lydia is singing, dancing, hovering, and really enjoying it. Meanwhile, Beetlejuice is in the waiting area of that weird place with the rest of the weird creatures. He even gets his head reduced for trying to outsmart this guy beside him. Anyway, that's it. And with how many times I've said Beetlejuice's name in this movie, I expect him to have moved in with me by now. Finally, some relief from my eternal solitude. Goodbye.